Today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast Thursday live stream, we are going to talk about a few different things. In This Week in Satire, we are going to address how school districts are announcing summer enrichment programs for kids who need that little bit of extra grooming. In our rant of the week, we're going to address individuals who want to force us all to wear the patches, wear the ribbons, and endorse their crazy, crazy choices.
I don't want to wear the ribbon. He doesn't want to wear the ribbon.
Yes.
Seinfeld.
Then in our Shrewd check, we're going to address the good guy with a gun. Is it true? Is it a myth? We're going to investigate. And then finally, in our douche of the week, Hokey Dinah, we're talking about this crazy HR lady, this crazy recruiter who wants anybody involved with the freedom movement, with the freedom convoy, any of that, to be permanently out of a job because she's horrible.
She's a banshee straight out of hell. Like, seriously,
all of that.
I had nightmares.
Yeah, all of that and more on the Shrewd Dudes podcast. All right. We're back.
We're back, man.
And we're back streaming as always on Thursdays.
That's right.
This is one of our favorite times because, of course, we get to interact with anybody who is watching, anybody who is listening. For those who are just joining us and those who are joining throughout the stream, of course, you can comment anytime you wish. Have any questions? Of course, anything inappropriate will not be answered. But if you have any questions or commentary, we will address it as soon as we can. If you're watching a video, we cannot see, at least I cannot see your questions because otherwise it turns the screen black.
However, I am monitoring the Facebook feed. So
yep. So Danny will monitor that, and I'm going to be monitoring Twitch and YouTube. And nobody ever really comments on Twitter, so who cares about that?
Good old Twitter.
Good old Twitter.
Come on, Twitter.
Alas, Danny, did anything kind of crazy happen in the last few days? I don't think so.
Yes, tomorrow I'm officially going to get myself a car.
Oh.
This is pretty exciting. So basically long story short, through a lot of very fortunate circumstances, my buddy, Mike, is selling his Dodge Nitro. Yeah. And so I'm getting that, and then he's going to be basically switching to a car because he can't afford to be driving
to pay for the gas.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh. So yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, gas is.
And awful. I know gas is awful, but thankfully my job kind of pays for some of my gas. Plus, I need an SUV. So yeah, I think it's gonna be good. I'm excited. I even got a name for it. Gonna call it Bolt.
Bolt.
Yeah, you know that movie about that dog who thinks he's like an actor who thinks he's like a superhero. Yeah, but then he actually realizes that he's actually pretty fast. That's right. That's the one. I'm like, because the Dodge Nitro is basically a Jeep Liberty, but like a lesser Jeep Liberty. So I'm like, yeah, it's like a white vehicle pretending to be something it's not, but still having some pep. I'm like, yeah, I like it.
Okay.
Good old Bolt.
Sure.
Bolt's cool. I like Bolt. He's adorable. Stop. Oh, you know what? Don't even give me that pity clap.
Pandering clap.
Go do your thing. What do you do this week, Mr. Special?
I didn't do anything really all that special.
Well, then you're not special, are you now?
My week was fairly uneventful. It's just been work and kids and life and whatever.
So enlightening.
Yes, although for Calgary people, just a little bit of a heads up. Danny can't come to this because he made plans like a lame dork.
Or a socially popular person.
Who does that? Tomorrow I've officially opening my house. What is a Woman movie? Probably starting at 6. And then games afterwards. If people want to come by, it's kind of open house, so come in and come out. Then we're going to have a discussion, have a chill time. So hopefully there'll be a few people coming out and having some good time discussing what is a woman. Anyways, let's jump into
eyebrow roll.
Jump into this week in satire.
All right, Mr. Maximus.
Maximus, are you not entertained?
The horse. A horse with like the little eyebrows.
Oh. School district announces summer enrichment program for kids who need that extra little bit of grooming. So the Loudoun County School District has announced a series of camps and summer programs for students who require additional grooming during the break.
I love how they use Loudoun County for this one. That's so great.
We try our best to groom all our students to be radical queer activists from preschool, but we understand that some kids fall behind in their grooming process, said Superintendent.
I feel like you need to do that in a more very, like, you know, like effeminate, you know, like, you know, gay voice or something like that. Just for
I
fun.
think it'd be more like the kind of like evil. We try our best to groom all our students to be radical queer activists from preschool.
Ooh,
but we understand that some kids fall behind in the grooming process, said Superintendent Stott Spiegler. We wanted to offer these fun and exciting summer enrichment programs to help maintain our students' radicalization and protect them from the influence of transphobic, bigoted parents, because we care.
Ooh, good.
Programs being offered this summer include twerking workshop for kids, beginner to advanced.
Lovely.
Trans Finance 101, how to raise money for your top surgery without your parents finding out. Drag Camp, a 4-week camp in which kids learn to grow through unsupervised activities with drag queens. Gay bar hopping night for kindergartners. What better way to teach tolerance?
Yep.
The programs are being hailed by trans rights groups, Democrats, and the eldritch creature who lives under the surface of Loudoun County and feasts on the sword of the damned.
Oh, it's it!
At Publishing Town, all events were cancelled for everyone's safety due to a Matt Walsh sighting. All hands Walsh.
Sweet baby gang! Sweet baby gang!
SPG for life!
SPG for life!
Yep.
For those who don't know, Matt Walsh has a special club called the... it's called the Sweet Baby Gang, and that's pretty awesome.
Sweet baby daddy.
That's right. We're sweet baby babies.
Yeah,
I feel special.
Right.
But that was not the only satire that made me laugh my head off this week. The other one is from Freedom Tunes, which I love, and this one was like so good because it absolutely crushes the like. Have you ever heard of the dog whistle thing?
Yep.
That they're like, oh, it's a racist dog whistle. Oh, it's a sexist dog whistle. That is the dumbest concept ever, and I love how they took that concept and just like beautifully
shat on it.
Yeah, all over it. It was great. It was so good. So yeah, shows the Freedom Tunes because I laughed so hard when I saw this.
Okay, one more
Freedom
share.
Tunes.
One more share.
No. So Freedom Tunes is a great. It's basically a guy who's actually always on Timcast IRL. Seamus O'Brien, but basically he makes amazing YouTube videos, and they are usually very smart and just hilarious. They're equal to like Babylon Bee for me.
Fantastic.
They do a fantastic job.
Oh yeah, no, like the Freedom Tunes, Seamus Coughlin. I really enjoy how he's been consistently showing up on Timcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because before it was like, okay, well you have Tim and you have Ian and you have what's that other guy's name?
Luke?
Yes, Luke. And like they're interesting commentators, but they're not conservatives and they don't present that angle at all. And like Seamus is just like
Christian.
I am a Catholic, I'm a conservative, let's do this.
Plus he does the voices, which are just hilarious.
Oh yeah, the voices are great.
he puts Steven Crowder to shame.
Yes.
Like he really does.
Steven Crowder has his moments.
He does.
But yeah.
Especially when he does a Gilbert Gottfried voice for like, it's just
from
wonderful.
Aladdin.
Well, yes, but like he does it for the Democratic socialist
Bernie
Sanders. Yeah, he does Guilford Godfrey for that.
Oh, see, I don't do Guilford Godfrey when I do Bernie Sanders.
No, he does, but he does, and he's amazing.
Asking for your money.
We want to rule the world.
Communism is not a bad idea. Red lights are a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Exactly.
All right. All right, shows
what
we got. What we got?
Yeah, let's talk about the.
So
let's show the clip because it is good.
What the media says conservatives shall like. The title says.
Oh no.
Wind down a bit, man.
The schools just told kids that racism exists. You know what that means? Time for an insurrection! Our years of careful planning have paid off. Alert the right-wing populace through our secret dog whistles. Done! I just sent out the secret
Snitcher?
incel Pepe meme. In just a few hours, this country is going to be a Christian theocracy.
Okay, guys, so Morio's Cookies just put out an ad which was 3 gay men making out for 5 straight minutes.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I think we should stop eating Morio's. But their cookies are so good.
Organizing boycotts is hard.
Buy the off-brand version.
No, you can always taste the difference.
Okay, so is the future of your country worth more or less to you than the cookie brand?
You can pry it from my cold, dead hands.
This just in,
This won't be
experts
that long
have
with diabetes.
decoded a secret racist right-wing dog whistle. Cookies are being eaten by bigoted right-wingers to show how racist they are. Here on TV, we just decided cookies are racist.
Nah, I've never had one before.
Become a member.
Oh, so good. They just absolutely lampooned the whole idea that, like, because, like, believe it or not, every time I watch everyone from Joy, Behar to The View to like all these people, they literally think that the right wing has this master plan.
Oh yeah.
That they're all like in on this grand conspiracy to destroy America, and like they have like this dog whistle that they're secretly calling to their like allies and the right wing kind of extreme, like, you know, like ghettos. And I'm like, oh, like this one was so perfect. That's why I just enjoyed it so much. It was just really good. And see, this is the thing, like with there's a lot of like, you know, comedy content from Ladder Crowder to like Babylon B to Freedom Tunes to so many other places. They're actually funny.
Yep.
And they know how to be funny. It's like Steven, did you hear that? So we covered it on Tuesday. Did you actually see the joke that Washington Post writer got fired for?
Well, he didn't get fired. He got suspended.
Well, he got suspended, but
he
you
got
remember
suspended
the tweet?
for a month without pay. Yes, I do.
What was it?
It was women are either... You don't need to ask a woman whether she's bi, because she's always one of
women are always
bipolar or bisexual.
You know, all women are bi. It just like you
just depends on whether it's bipolar or bisexual.
Bipolar, bisexual, yeah. No, bipolar or bisexual, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was actually kind of clever.
It was.
But the thing is, nobody on the left has a sense of humor.
No.
They just explode. So this is why I like being on the right wing, because not only are we funnier, but we live longer because we're not constantly like, you know, like loading with rage at every single thing. So yeah, exactly. You know, we like to keep it keep it
100.
That's right. We like to keep it you know, dog whistly.
Keep it dog whistly.
It's like, shh, we don't talk about the secret code.
Yeah, nobody talks about the secret code. No
secret code.
Yeah. Unfortunately, somebody who has uncovered the secret code.
No, she's on to us.
Yeah, she's on to us. Sarah Spain.
So we're gonna do the rant of the week.
We're gonna do the rant of the week right now.
Let's do it.
Red alert.
Oh crap!
What you do?
So sorry, everybody.
What you do?
I forgot to resize the rant of the week.
Whoops.
Yep. Okay, I can fix this. So let's do the intro, and then while you do the talking, I'm going to make sure everything else is resized.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so
I'll intro to the story, or I'll
Okay.
read the story out. So ESPN commentator Sarah Spain blasts bigoted Tampa Bay Rays. Players who refuse to wear the Pride Month rainbow patches rips their religious exemption BS.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you crazy lady.
Here we go.
ESPN commentator Sarah Spain on Monday blasted Tampa Bay Rays baseball players who refused to wear Pride Month rainbow patches on their uniforms as bigoted towards LGBTQ people and said they're full of religious exemption BS. During Around the Horn segment, host Tony Reale read a part of the statement from one of the players who decided against wearing the rainbow-colored patches. We also covered on Tuesday's show. Pitcher Jason Adam, who called it a faith-based decision. And of course, hard decision. Ultimately, we all said what we want is them to know they're welcome and loved. When we put in our bodies, I think a lot of guys decided it's a lifestyle that maybe, not they look down on anybody, it's just that maybe we don't want to encourage that if we believe in Jesus, who's encouraged us to live a lifestyle that would abstain from that behavior. Totally reasonable comment, no problem.
Yeah, very they're not trying to be offensive, but people always have to take offense. They got to find some kind of victim.
So, Spain. When Reale asked Spain for her take, she replied, as reading from a prepared statement, that pride is about inclusion. So if you don't love them, and you don't welcome them, you're not willing to wear the patch. And calling it a lifestyle reveals to me that you've done not even a modicum of research or understanding on this topic. It's what tends to happen when a privileged class isn't affected by things. It's not about baseball. That religious exemption BS, which is used in sport and otherwise, also allows for people to be denied healthcare, jobs, apartments, children, prescriptions, all sorts of things. Spain followed that up. Yes?
Rather than reading it, why don't you show the clip that they have underneath?
Oh, they have a clip?
They have a clip right there.
Tampa Bay Rays acknowledging Pride Month with a rainbow patch on their jerseys. And then 5 players refusing to wear those patches on their jerseys.
I can't make it full
screen. You can't make it, but you can hear it.
Tampa Bay Times, hard decision because ultimately we all said we want them to know that they are welcome and loved here. But when we put it on our bodies, I think a lot of guys decide
like the music.
It's a lifestyle that maybe, not that they look down on or anything or differently, it's just that maybe we don't want to encourage we believe in Jesus who's encouraged us to live a lifestyle that would abstain from that behavior. Sarah Spain, how does that all come off to you?
Pride is about inclusion, so you don't love them and you don't welcome them if you're not willing to wear the patch. And calling it a lifestyle reveals to me that you've done not even a modicum of research or understanding on this topic. It's what tends to happen when a privileged class isn't affected by things. This is not just about baseball. That religious exemption BS, which is used in sport and otherwise, also allows for people to be denied health care, jobs, apartments, children, prescriptions, all sorts of rights. And so we have to stop tiptoeing around it because we're trying to protect people who are trying to be bigoted from asking for them to be exempt from it when the very people that they are bigoted against are suffering the consequences.
When you say trying to be bigoted.
No, keep going. That part. Trying to be bigoted.
They're trying to use religious exemptions to affect the opportunities, services, available resources for people who are LGBTQ+.
And a patch on the jersey in this way?
In the case of sport, no. In the case of sport, though, they're double talking if they're saying you're welcome while also saying that we don't encourage or we disagree with it, especially when there are devout people of every single religion that also welcome and are open to people who are born gay.
David Dennis Jr., your read on it?
Okay, you can stop there, yeah. That's her statements. So, first of all, she said, the people of, devout people of every religion totally accept it. I'm like, yeah, they're called heretics, sweetie. I'm sorry, that's actually a heretic. If you're a devout Muslim, you do not affirm, the LGBT lifestyle. Okay, if you are devout Mormon or devout Jehovah's Witness or devout Hindu, you're usually not on board with that kind of stuff because it's rejected by those faiths as well. So it's like. The funny thing is, people like this, they love to talk like they're experts in other religions, including Christianity. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people this week that dunked on, because this is by far, by the way, this is not courageous, nor does it take any kind of strength or anything like that to basically dunk on the Christians, because the Christians are easy targets right now. Now the whole thing that she said was so ridiculous. Because what she said is that, well, these guys not wearing a patch on their jerseys means that, LGBT people can't, get children and they can't get groceries and they're denied this and that. And I'm like, how does jersey like patches
Yep.
like stop people from getting that. It's like, well, it's related somehow.
It's related.
Some
I just
some
can't
magical. I have to do some intellectual pretzels to kind of work it in somehow. Because oppression, victimhood, crazy Christians.
The Olympics. She gets the gold.
The oppression Olympics. Woohoo! She landed it.
Yep, she did.
Yeah. So the funny thing is though that this is where we're at right now in our society. We are at the point where you're no longer allowed a choice. You're not given an option anymore. Do you notice that? Mm-hmm. They don't. It's like the Seinfeld episode you and I kind of talked about before. Yep. That it's like what's the guy's name? The tall guy with the crazy hair.
I have no idea. Kramer.
Anyways, Kramer.
How do I
so
know
he
that?
goes into an AIDS walk, but he doesn't want to wear the ribbon, and then this gang of thugs all surround him. And they're like, he doesn't want to wear the ribbon. Why don't you wear the ribbon? It's like I don't want to. It's like they basically beat him up because now. That's basically what's going on here. The LGBT community has so much social capital and power that they can simultaneously act like the victims while they're still acting like the most vindictive bullies there are. They're like, oh no, you're not allowed to disagree. You can't say no. You have to. You can't even just celebrate. You can. It's not good enough that you applaud what we're doing. You have to participate now. Like this is downright like this is bullying. This is like you're forcing people to do something they don't want to do. That's where we're at right now. And it's really dangerous to this point. Because I remember hearing a story of happened this week. There was a girl in a school in England. It was like an all-girls school, and she had the audacity to actually ask some tough questions to a presenter that was very aggressively anti-Christian and talking about LGBT stuff. And all of her classmates, basically, some of them ran out of the room crying. Some of them, they were triggered. And then all of a sudden, all of them all together came right into her face, like dozens of them, yelling at her, screaming at her, like doing all these things, like to like scare her, and doing graffiti, like making death threats. But they're the victims. It's like, they can act like the most horrible human beings alive, but they're the victims, right? This is what we talked about before, the Cowboys and Indians thing. That it doesn't matter what they do; they're always the good guys. Always. They could literally like kill somebody, and they would still be the good guys. They would still be the victims. And it's sad that this is where we're at right now in our society, where you're not even allowed a choice. You have to join in. It's like the emperor's got no clothes, and you have to take off all your clothes and jump in and walk around naked with them because choice is gone.
Choice is gone indeed.
Right, Stephen?
Yes. No, like jumping back, and like Matt Walsh was talking about it with Kramer. Like they will, like they said for the longest time, they're like, we're not going to force you to comply. We don't want to force you to do anything. We just want to live our lives.
We just want tolerance.
Well, yeah, we just want tolerance. We just want acceptance. And we're like, I don't think that's what you actually want. And like it was made more evidence, of course, when we talked about like Jack. We didn't even talk about this because this was before the Shrewd Dudes podcast exists. But Jack Phillips, the bakery, and they're like, oh, you have to make us a gay wedding cake. And he's like, well, I'll make you a cake, but I just won't decorate it. Or like, I'll give you the names of other bakeries, or I won't write that message. And they kept hounding him. They kept coming after him. They kept demanding more and more. And they tried to put him out of business. They tried to saddle him with hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines. The Supreme Court had to step in to save his business, but he's basically been attacked and maligned at every possible opportunity to try and ruin this guy's life. And it was like, what makes you think they're going to stop there? Like they came after Chick-fil-A because the owner was like, well, no, like marriage is between a man and a woman. Oh my gosh, that's unforgivable. You have to agree with us or you're bigoted. It's like, you cannot demand conformity and then say we're the tolerant ones.
Yeah. It's like the people who claim to be the most tolerant are also like the people who are the least tolerant. That's always been the thing that's crazy about this.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, like we were talking about it in a chat thread from Jojo this week. Shout out to Jojo, he's awesome.
Jojo.
But, yeah, there was this one woman, and she's like, "Oh, like I've seen so much hate towards the LGBTQ and the trans community," and I'm like, "What hate?" Like every single time I see hate, I see nasty messages. It's always coming in one direction, and it's not from the right to the left. It's from the left to the right, because the right says, "I disagree," and the left responds with, "You are evil." Of course, we talked about this many, many times, that Dennis Prager says, if on the left, if you disagree with them, you're evil. On the right, if you disagree with us, we want to have a conversation. We just think you're incorrect.
Yeah, I always get like I hear people saying that the trans community is like so horribly bullied that it's like an epidemic, and yet I'm like, you know what? I'd actually want to. I wouldn't mind asking somebody, do you have any stats on that? Because we hear that all the time, that they're hard, like they're bullied to oblivion and all that. And I'm like, I almost like I hate to say it, but I almost want them to put up to like, what's the evidence? Because from every time you hear a trans person saying like, "Oh my God, I'm bullied," it's usually because somebody disagreed with them or somebody said something that they didn't like, and they freak out.
Yeah,
and they suddenly the world's ending, and they literally collapse into a heap of like puddle of years, and like they can't exist or something like that.
Yeah,
like I'm not saying that to be mean. No. It genuinely is how they respond. They're like children who like they're told no, and they have like a temper tantrum in the middle of the grocery store. Like it's sad to see how little they can handle. And so like the thing is, the men who were in that baseball team, like their statement was actually very respectful and very thoughtful. I mean, I think that they went too far. They like having to justify it all. But the people who respond, they never take that kind of like tact. They never like, well, you know what? I can see where they're coming from, but I actually think it's more important to support like, people, and maybe people. No, they never take that path.
No.
It's always like, you suck, you're ugly, I hope you die, I hope your mom dies, I hope your dog dies, and I hope everything horrible happens to you. Like,
I hope you have your children taken away. Like I've had many, many times where I've had people try and threaten me with that. Like I've had probably 10 different people. They're like, "I'm going to call Child Protective Service on." I'm like, "For what?" And they're like, "Because you're a hateful bigots and you're brainwashing them." And I'm like, this is justification to you to try and get my kids removed from me because you disagree with my point of view? And they're like, "Yep, you're evil because you have this point of view." And I'm like, this is why the left is losing. People hand over fist because people are seeing how radical you guys are going.
And the left is also the most open to violence. Because remember that there was that one speaker in Texas. Remember that was like a trans mob stormed his event, and basically that one person stood on the desk and they were spitting at him. And
university professor.
University professor. He had to be escorted out with another like girl from like the conservative group, and they were
and of course like there's the Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles event where he was like, "Men are not women." Yeah, and then somebody like threw paint at him. And like police basically shut down the event for threats and violence, and it was just like, this is nuts.
Yeah, and the thing is that the people so going back to that Freedom Tunes cartoon that we showed it earlier, they always accuse the right of being the crazy radicals, the crazy lunatics. But in reality, if you actually pay attention, most of the crazy people are on the left.
Oh yeah,
like that's why I call them the lunatic left.
Yep. Because
not only are their policies like completely crazy, but their behavior and the way that they act and the things that they demand and all that, they're lunatics. Like in some ways, like they have like a very tenuous grip on realities. Yeah. So I think that this is we're in a moment right now where these they're basically a mob they feel emboldened, and now they feel like they can say and do whatever they want.
Yeah,
and that's
and
not going to
well, and they know that they're going to get away with it.
Yeah,
they can get away with absolutely anything. Like, well, this summer was particularly bad, but I think
will be bad.
Oh, it would be terrible. But I think one of the most interesting incidents of all of this was going back all the way. I think it was to 2012 with Kathy Tur. Kathy Tur was that trans individual that threatened Ben Shapiro.
Right, she held him by the neck.
Yeah, like, like if you keep talking like that, you're gonna be leaving in an ambulance. Like, that is a threat of violence on somebody's individual life. Sorry, middle. And Ben Shapiro went to the police the next day, and the police are like, "We can't do anything." And he's like, "What do you mean? Like, we have video evidence that this person threatened me with bodily harm." And they're like, "Yeah, but they're trans. We're not taking, like, we're not doing anything about that because that will send a terrible message for everybody else." And it's like, you're willing to protect criminals as long as they ascribe to a select identity. And they're like, yes.
And you wonder why they act like they do.
Yeah.
Because they know that they know that they'll face no consequences. So.
No consequences whatsoever.
No consequence.
But now we do have to move on to the news you may have missed. Before we do that, I'm going to have a little bit where I resize everything. I'm very sorry. I can't do it in studio mode. I would love to do it in studio mode, but I can't. So before we start, I know this is going to be really weird for everybody. You're going to hear some weird things.
Oh.
So I'm going to start it, I'm going to mute it, and then I'm going to resize it.
Oh, in real time. This is very interesting.
Yeah, this is all our intros, everybody. So, good for you. That one we don't use anymore. The douche of the week.
There we go. That's what it looks like. With the poop's gone.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, I'm going to get some water, okay?
Okay. More water for Danny. Oh, it disappeared. Dang it. Do it again. It's too short.
That was good. It's a new record. So, just in case you guys are wondering, what happened was...
Shrewd check. Last one.
Okay. What happened was this week we were recording our episodes, and we found out, for some bizarre reason, they were recording an incredibly large amount, like 4 gigabytes per episode. And so we had to lower our resolution down to 720 just to make it more reasonable.
Well, the files were just becoming... Like, to put it in perspective, everybody, 2 gigs is the normal size of our videos. And whenever they went over 2 gigs, I had to resize them. And so I was using my program, and it would take about 20 minutes per video to resize. And I'm like, it's getting annoying, whatever. Like, it's not that common that it's over 2 gigs. And now, I don't know exactly why, but my file size has increased substantially. And so instead of having 2 gigs... my file size went up to 5 gigs.
Oh, jeez.
And so it's just like, why? This is dumb. And I'm like, I don't want to convert every video. So whatever, I'm going to make it 720. I'm sorry for everybody if that affects you in some weird way. I don't care. It's just the way it is. But now let's jump into the news you may have missed. And hopefully there aren't any more technical glitches. We'll see.
Admonish.
Shush. Okay, so jumping into the news you may have missed. Oh, we have from Conquerworm. They're setting up for the elections. Things are getting stupid between Roe v. Wade, gun control, and January 6th. I think he's saying they're inciting violence and outrage. That is certainly true. They want violence. They want violence, not violence. They want violence. They want outrage. They want to have division between the two groups. They want to say, oh, like, the right is evil. And thankfully the right is not like, oh, the left are intrinsically evil. They're just really, really misguided. But there are outside forces that are really, really scary and sketchy. And they're pushing for things that are trying to destabilize the connections we have, starting with the nuclear family and a whole bunch of other things. So that was a good remark.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, jumping in with the first news story from the news you may have missed, and it's actually fairly telling to go along with that comment. The FBI arrests Ryan Kelly, GOP candidate for Michigan governor, for his role in Capitol riot. And it's kind of interesting that the Capitol riot, thing is going on today. Going on right now.
Well, it struck me. Okay, this whole story struck me as political interference.
Oh wait, well that's
everything I thought of.
This is American political prisoners.
Oh.
Anybody involved with the January 6th things, that's political prisoners. But the fact that they're saying, the lead Republican candidate for governor of Michigan was arrested by the FBI and charged with participating in the January 6th riot, it's a little questionable.
After this much time, give me a freaking break.
He was arrested and charged with a misdemeanor, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The arrest comes hours before the committee investigating the events is set to hold its first public hearing. So while the real estate broker downplayed his involvement, analysis of multiple videos show Kelly on the steps outside the building rallying the crowd. Last summer, the Michigan Democratic Party promoted a video of Kelly at the time saying, "Come on, let's go, this is it. This is war, baby." Which is not great. So as far as going through any barricades or doing anything like that, I never took part in any forceful anything. I told M Live after starting his campaign, once things started getting crazy, I left. So, according to the statement of facts supporting the criminal complaint, the FBI first began receiving tips about his involvement in the weeks after the violence. So, it's unclear exactly what he what he was involved in. If he's encouraging people to break windows, that's one thing. But if he's just saying let's get passionate, let's get active, this is it's not great. The words are not great in terms of this is war, but it's is that criminal? No.
I don't justify it in any way. I know what this is. It's a distraction. The Michigan primary, three major candidates were disqualified. Yep. And these are the three best known ones, including the former police chief in Michigan. He was disqualified, and obviously they were for political reasons, and now they're trying to take the front runner out using a totally made up. I hate to say it, the fact that I have so little confidence in the American system, I'm this is totally BS. This is made up. They made up a charge to go after their number one opponent in Michigan. Give me a break. You expect us to believe this wasn't some kind of political hit job? That suddenly now in the middle of this gubernatorial race, suddenly, the FBI and arrested him? Give me a break.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, Stephen. I think that's
too
totally
kind of up in the air questionable.
Yeah.
But anyways, we do have to be moving on to the next one.
Now let's go. Fox News. This story is from Fox News. It says Biden takes aim at Republicans. Trump during appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live. You always take a risk whenever you put Joe Biden on a live show.
Yeah.
President Joe Biden accused former President Trump of abusing the Constitution during his late night appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live. So he appeared on Jimmy Kimmel for his first network interview in 118 days, well, how they counted, on Wednesday night. The president kicked off his first in-person appearance by discussing gun control efforts with comedian and host Jimmy Kimmel. Biden wasted no time taking aim at Republicans, saying a lot of intimidation by the NRA. Look, this is not your father's Republican Party. This is a MAGA party. It's great.
It's the ultra MAGA party.
That's corn pop. The president talked about his recent trip to Uvalde, Texas, where 19 children and 2 teachers were gunned down at Robb Elementary School. I met with every single family member, all those kids killed, and those teachers killed down in Uvalde, Texas. Stories he told, the pain you could see on their faces. It's oh man. Kimmel then questioned about
manipulation.
No?
Actually, no. Emotional damage.
Yeah, that's one. So obviously this is all PR. They had Matthew McConaughey on because they had no credibility, so they borrowed his. He went on Jimmy Kimmel to try to go on a popular thing because he's getting no traction. You feel free to follow up the story if you like, but one thing I found interesting is I heard a report saying that at one point he started talking gibberish, and Jimmy Kimmel was oh, okay, we're gonna take a break, to help the senile old man recover and get his head back. So, this is just shameless plugging. Biden is the most unpopular president possibly ever. Like he is spiraling. This is desperation. So take on the next one, man.
Yeah. Okay. Rebel news: Canada's airports enter a total meltdown, and Trudeau does not care. So
legitimately,
when we sent a team of journalists to Davos, Switzerland, to cover the World Economic Forum and WHO Assembly, you might have noticed that none of them were Canadians. Our reporters from Australia, the UK, and America. So it's with a small degree of Schadenfreude, that's the German word for taking joy in someone else's misery, that I see stories like this from airports. I have no malice towards those who are flying while I am not allowed to do so. I do not wish to deny them their right to choose to take the jab. Just, I don't want my own right to be not to take the jab to be denied. But if I'm in the cast of untouchables, if I'm segregated, a second-class citizen, I can at least comfort myself by knowing that those who have complied, whether for their own reason or his reasons, they're not really doing a lot of flying themselves, because our airports are in a meltdown. Look at this video. This is the Ryan Whitney story we covered on Tuesday. Yeah, so things in Canada's airports are terrible.
They're a nightmare.
I don't really feel like... I do not feel much compassion at all. It's like, well, things could be operating better, but guess what? You decided to fire a whole bunch of employees.
Not to mention that they're... I saw an Andrew Lawton interview with like one of the former head of Air Canada, and they were talking about the whole problem that's going on in Canada. Canada is in an absolute tailspin as far as airports go. Travel goes,
as far as a whole bunch of things go.
And like right now, the one that's like having the biggest meltdown is the airports.
Yeah.
Because not only are they scrambling to figure out the mess that they've created, but it's going to get worse because the summer season's coming, and this is the heavy season for tourism, which means it's going to affect every tourism, every industry that depends on tourism.
Stupid.
It's going to be really terrible. So,
yep.
Yeah. So next story. This is from Fox News. California lawmaker jokes that Drag Queen 101 be taught to kids in response to Texas drag show bill. And if you ever wanted to have any more reason to get the crap out of California, here's one more to add to the pile. So California Senator Scott Wiener, that's a great name for a guy who introduces this bill. Great job. A Democrat tweeted the joke in reaction to a Texas legislative proposal. So Scott Wiener, a Democrat whose trick encompasses San Francisco, made the comment in response to a tweet from Texas Republican State Republican Brian Slayton, who said he was filing legislation to ban drag shows in presence of children. So obviously, we talked about this this week that in Texas, in Dallas, there was a drag show. It was horrible. It was really should be called abusive. And so there was a representative who actually pushed legislation to ban that stuff. In California, no, we got to encourage that stuff. Here's what he said: drag shows are no place for a child. I would never take my children to a drag show and never let. And I know Speaker Dad. Oh, so this is the Texas Republican who made that legislation. So here's what's Mr. Scott Wiener decided to do instead. This guy gave me a bill idea, offering Drag Queen 101 as part of the K-12 curriculum, he wrote. Attending drag queen story time will satisfy the requirement. This is just like it's like people are trying to put some sanity, and then you have
people like that.
Oh, then you have people like this going the completely other way. It's the polarization that's happening in the U.S. is
like I do love Slayton. What's his name? Brian Slayton. Responded to Wiener's comments saying this man as a California legislator is clearly sick. Join me in praying. Yep.
Your comments.
That's how you respond, because it's just
this man is legitimately a sick man.
Yeah, you are a sick man. You're trying to get terrible things and put them through our schools. It's like, yeah, let's pray for your soul, because you clearly need it.
Apparently, Wiener's office told Fox News that her remarks were a joke. I'm like, you have a very sick sense of humor, bro. Sick sense of humor. Oh, some people. So the States is legitimately a gigantic dumpster fire right now. All right, buddy. Take the next one.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Sounds good. And to King James, I'm a real Canadian. I'm just ashamed of it.
Yeah, Canada.
Canada's just trash.
Well, the U.S. Okay, here let me give you a little context, quick. So the U.S. they're pretty much preparing for a civil war. Like, there's very little doubt that the country is literally ripping itself to pieces. In Canada, we're pretty much like running down the hill towards fascism. Yep. And Canadians have no idea. We're basically lemmings. The States, they're basically like red ants versus black ants. We're the lemmings up here. We're pretty much being led to the cliff.
Well, it's such a small movement. Yeah, there will be likely another American Civil War, but it'll have nothing to do with race. It'll be because the left is just trying to take so much from the right, and the left is like, oh, we want a whole bunch of crazy things, and the right's like, well, we want civility. Yes, we're already in a cold civil war with the United States. Like, the United States is already in a cold civil war. It is a cultural civil war. Thank you, Conquer Worm.
It is. Yes, that's right.
So let's continue. I will continue on with the dangers of transgender Barbie, the sickness.
Yeah.
So it's no longer just Barbie and Ken. Mattel has created a transgender Barbie in the likeness of actor Laverne Cox, a biological male who identifies as a female. Cox, who gained notoriety in the Netflix series Orange is the New Black, worked with Mattel to design the doll.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, stop for a second. Like, seriously, the last guy, the legislator, his name was Wiener. Like, and then this person is Laverne Cox. Like, is this like an accident? Do people literally choose these names for fun? Like, it seems odd to me. Like, everyone has like a sexually explicit name. Anyway, go on. I think that's just crazy. Like, literally insane. I don't know what that thing.
Anyways. Yeah. All right, I'm kind of getting distracted by the chat because it's actually active right now. So it's been a dream for years to work with Barbie to create my own doll. Cox said in a statement, I can't wait for fans to find my doll on shelves and have an opportunity to add a Barbie doll modeled after a transgender person to their collection. Cox joined NBC's Today Show in May and said the doll is significant at this time in history because over 250 pieces of anti-transgender legislation have been introduced in state legislatures all over the country, targeting transgender children and LGBTQ youth.
Oh, it's called
they're not trans kids. They're just being groomed by abusive parents.
Yeah, social contagion. You monsters. Ugh. Go watch the movie What is a Woman? That'll show you a little thing or two about the nonsense that's going on. Yeah, what were your thoughts on this though, Steven? Like the fact that like they're adding a transgender Barbie.
Oh, well, like it's exactly like we were talking about on Tuesday, where they had the transgender cheerleader.
Yeah,
it's like there is a rejection of reality, and they're trying to say this is an acceptable thing. This is something your children should be aspiring to be. Your children should be aspiring to be something that is delusional.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not good. That's not something that you should be encouraging children to become. They have to say, this is their reality. This is what life is like. And you can either choose to live in reality or you can choose to live in a delusion. And right now, of course, if you choose to live in a delusion, then society enables you.
Yeah, I think what's happening is that the left, and particularly the cultural Marxists that are all part of the left, they're basically weaponizing compassion, or like kindness. They're weaponizing kindness. They're basically going to regular people because I mean, let's face it, most people in North America are genuinely want to be like good people. They want to be nice. They want to be kind to their neighbors. Like this has been something that's been part of our culture for a long time, and so they're weaponizing that. Like you want to be a good person, don't you? You want to be a nice person, don't you? You don't want to be a bigot, do you? You don't want to be horrible. You don't want people to die, do you? And so they basically use guilt trips, like they weaponize guilt trips to try to get people to comply. And something's funny.
Oh no, because it was just somebody who was just like, I got a lot of crap to say about American politics, and Conquer Worm's like, good thing we got American, go nuts.
But Pile it on, bro. Pile it on.
Yeah, let's hear it. It'd be interesting commentary. But I'll switch over to the next one, and you can start over with the Canadian news ish.
So this is from the Counter Signal. So again, I wanna just throw a big plug. Kian Bexty used to be with Rebel News. He has created an amazing
good.
news source. I love it. So that's why I'm using it a lot. So this is from Counter Signal. Breaking: Polyev demands Marco Mendocino resigns for lying about Emergencies Act. It's kind of a big deal right here in Canada. According to an email from Polyev's campaign team, today candidate for Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre, demanded that Minister of Public Safety resign for making false statements to Canadians in the House of Commons and creating a fake excuse to invoke the Emergencies Act. So going down a little bit, in late April, Mendocino claimed it was on the advice of law enforcement that we invoked the Emergencies Act. And then below it says, but law enforcement disputes this. No, there was never a question of requesting the Emergencies Act. That's what the RCMP commissioner said. Then the former Ottawa police chief, who was one of our douches of the week, Peter Slawley said, I did not make that request, nor did anyone else in the police service. So Mendocino tried to walk back his claims, suggesting law enforcement did not ask for the Emergencies Act specifically, but they wanted the powers included in it. The request was for the powers, which required an invocation of the Emergencies Act. However, Poilievre isn't buying it, and he's saying it's clear he made false statements, and it wasn't just about something trivial. He wanted to give Trudeau cover to invoke the Emergencies Act, freeze people's bank accounts, and trample on civil liberties. He called him to resign. So here's the big thing about this whole issue. Okay, so what happened was Mendocino was caught red-faced. He was caught lying. He made a bald-faced claim. He basically said, "Oh yeah, he did not choose to do the Emergencies Act. We were asked to do it, and then after a lot of it, testimony, it turned out nobody actually asked him to do it. And now instead of apologizing and saying like, yeah, that we screwed up, he's just doubling down. It's like, oh no, they misunderstood. Oh no,
yeah.
I didn't mean it. Like this is the problem with Canadian politics right now. We have a government that is so completely convinced that they do not owe anyone any accountability.
Yeah.
That they can lie to your face, and they feel like they'll never face any consequences.
Yeah. Well, the current American government is not much better. Especially when talking about the press secretaries, but at least there's some attempt at having a check and balance in the American system. Whereas in the Canadian system, it's just like, I can claim what I want, and I bought off the media here in Canada, so they'll just print whatever I tell them to, so it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Well, in Canada, there's far less, like they can do whatever they want, and they feel like they have no consequences because of that deal they made with the devil, Jagmeet Singh and Trudeau. They basically like, oh, we can rule for like however we want for 3 years, and we're good. We'll never have to face any backlash or any consequences to our actions, right? And so this is why they feel like they can get away with all this, like nonsense. Whereas in the States, like Joe Biden realizes his crap and his shenanigans is going to cost him the midterms, and it already has. And they also feel like, well, if he doesn't turn his ship around, he is going to pretty much hand the 2024 election, the presidential election, to the Republicans. So they have a real reason to be afraid, whereas in Canada, they don't. Mm-hmm. Which is why Canadian politics is right now a gigantic mess.
Dumpster fire.
It is. It's a horrible dumpster fire. So yeah.
Yep.
So that's
the overlord.
That's the news you may have missed this week.
Exactly.
Some good, some bad, but we'd like to catch you up. Right, man?
It is what it is. All right,
let's move on to the
Shrewd check. And I hope to high heaven that I fixed it. I don't know if I did.
Let me see.
We will see indeed. So, forgive me about this. It didn't even turn on. I don't even know. OBS is sometimes just does not like to work. So, anyways, Shrewd check, good guy with a gun, and addressing all of that. And of course, the first image is of the Three Amigos.
Three Amigos. Okay. So, let me walk people. So, no. Stay on the image. Jeez, go back. I'm
Jeez.
going to have to walk Steven through this one. All right, so in 1986, there was a major, a very, very amazing movie that came out by three of the top comedians of the day. So this is Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. And the movie was basically about a little town called, essentially, I speak Spanish, so I know what it was actually called. It's basically Poor Town. That's basically what the name means. I mean, there was Santo Poco, but Poor Town. And they were being harassed and, like, literally, like, totally harassed and bullied by a local, like, you know, like gang or like gang of thugs. And the reason why is because these people that were constantly coming into our town, they basically had guns and they didn't. And so they would come in, they would shoot, and they would like make them feel like horribly afraid and all that kind of stuff. And so they went out and they found these guys, the Three Amigos. Problem is, the Three Amigos they're not like real
Warriors.
Cowboys. They're actually just like a bunch of actors. But as the story goes on, not only do they find their courage and learn to fight back, but they actually inspire the town fight back themselves. So that all culminates in what's the next tab, which is their big showdown with these bandits in their hometown. So if you go to the YouTube tab there, Stephen,
okay.
We'll watch a little bit of that. So this is like the town finally all united around the common cause to fight off these bandits, and this is what essentially happened.
They are everywhere! They're over there too!
Oh, a little trap. Out they go.
Get back, you cowards! You traitors! I'm still here.
I'm still here. There he goes.
I'm not.
We can stop there.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, so like you can see there, these guys are all like guys with a lot of like, you know, they have a lot of firepower. And the town was always like, you know, basically at their mercy. But as you see in this, yeah, you could go to the next picture actually. What happens in the end is they basically fooled him by dressing up like the Three Amigos and making it look like, you know, that they were fighting a million amigos, but in reality it was a big trick. And I know that the story seems to, you know, like try to, you know, say that like, oh, the trick is what got him. It's like, no, it's actually an armed populace is what made it possible. What's that?
Like, no, that was bad acting. Oh, yes, it
Well,
was.
yeah. Well, it was bad acting, but like the whole concept. It's an '86 movie. It was a comedy. They're not going for like, you know, like Oscar, like, you know, Academy Awards
performances.
Here. None of that. But like if you see here in the image, the town itself, at the end, they're all dressed up, but they all have like guns and they all found their courage. Mm-hmm. And from this point on, the town was free from being harassed and being like, you know, treated like, you know, like helpless like victims. They found their courage by being able to fight and using like guns that kept things even. This is what made it possible for them to fight back. This is where the concept of good guy with a gun comes from. The idea that if you let only the criminals have the guns, then you're going to be a victim, you're going to be helpless, and you're going to be an easy target. But if you actually armed yourselves, you basically give yourselves a fighting chance. Mm-hmm. And this is why this is important, because right now in the United States, there's a very big conversation happening about the idea, the very concept of good guy with a gun.
Yep.
Okay? So let's go through some of these stories first. So let's go to the CNBC story.
All right. Well, I can read it.
Yeah, go for it.
So the House passes sweeping gun bill to raise assault rifle purchase age to 21. Plan faces long odds in the Senate. The House passed a sweeping gun bill that would raise the minimum age to purchase an assault rifle to 21. They don't know what an assault rifle is, but okay. Faces long odds in the Senate. The bill, called the Protecting Our Kids Act, would also bar the sale of large-capacity magazines and institute new rules that dictate proper at-home gun storage. I'm fine with a proper at-home gun storage. That's a good plan.
Yes and no. There's a problem. There's good and bad with all of this legislation.
And they, of course, passed the bill in the wake of 2 mass shootings carried out last month.
Okay. So a couple things on this. Let me kind of frame this. So in the wake of the Uvalde shooting, the school shooting that we covered at length in these last couple of weeks, here's the Democrats' response. They're like, you know what? Oh my goodness, bad things happen. One person with a gun did all this damage. We have to ban guns. And so all of their solutions and the solutions they've been pushing hard in the last couple of days and weeks have always been punish the good guys, punish them, and create laws that are not actually going to stop them. So let's cover some of these. The raising the age of purchase from 18 to 21, that is not going to stop them, because they will still be able to get guns. The problem, the ideas that they kind of advertise are not actually solutions. They said that they call it the Protecting Our Kids Act. That's emotional manipulation in the bill name, which is why they do it. They want to bar the sale of large capacity magazines. By the way, you ban large capacity magazines, a lot of guns are now illegal because they were designed for certain cartridges of bullets. They don't have the option of smaller ones. So you've effectively banned a large number of guns that suddenly can't be used because they don't have less than 10 bullet things. They want new rules to protect at-home gun storage. You know what that does? It makes it easier for burglars to pretty much come in and get you, because you have to keep your gun in one place, your ammo in a different place, both in safes. In the middle of the night when somebody's going through your house, that's making it far more difficult for you to defend yourself. It's all of these laws target the good guys. Now, let's go to the next story. This is from BBC.
Yep.
U.S. man's charged with attempted murder of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. So go ahead and read this.
So, again, charged with attempted murder. California man traveling across the country is facing a charge of attempted murder after his arrest near the home of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Nicholas John Roski, 26, had planned to murder a Supreme Court justice and was armed with a pistol and a tack knife. The suspect was taken into custody at about 1 a.m. local time.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was in the middle of the night.
Yeah, protection for the justice has been beefed up ahead of a landmark ruling on U.S. abortion rights. According to an affidavit filed in the U.S. District Court, Mr. Roski was spotted by 2 deputy marshals while getting out of a taxi in front of a Supreme Court in front of the justice's home. Carrying a suitcase and a backpack, he turned to walk down the street. Soon after, local EMS took a call from a man who identified himself as Mr. Roski. He said he was having suicidal thoughts, had a gun, and had just come from California to kill a specific U.S. Supreme Court justice. Local police officers were sent to the justice's home and arrested Mr. Roski. According to the Washington Post, Justice Kavanaugh and his family were at home at the time of the arrest.
Mm-hmm.
While in custody, he said he was upset about the leaked Supreme Court document on abortion, as well as the recent mass shooting in Uvalde, according to the affidavit.
Yeah, this sounds like it was a stunt, because the fact that the guy called in and said hey, I'm here to kill the Supreme Court guy or all that kind of stuff. It sounds like it may have been a stunt. But here's the thing: the second he showed up there, guess what? There was armed police officers monitoring and protecting the judge, as there should be. Guess what? That means that anybody makes an attempt, they're going to be stopped by a good guy with a gun, which is the actual marshals. All right. Now, most people don't have marshals. If you're at a home and you don't have U.S. marshals surrounding and protecting you from the outside, somebody comes in and wants to break into your house with a gun and a tactical knife, you don't have much of a chance, especially if you call the cops. They're going to be at least 10 minutes out. By that time, if that guy wants to kill you, you're dead. If you don't have any way of protecting yourself, you're dead. But the thing is, no, it's not it's your fault for wanting guns, not his fault for having one. And this actually is, I thought this was really well displayed in the post-millennial story. The next story is from post-millennial. So there was a suspect. There was an actual. So this is Tim Cast IRL. They've been swatted several times. But yesterday, this actually happened last night. They had to be evacuated during a live broadcast due to a potentially credible threat. Police actually showed up on scene. So you don't have to read the story. But basically what happened was, Tipcast was live. They've taken a lot of measures, a lot of security. They have a lot of precautions in place. And yet still somebody was able to get through. But they weren't actually afraid because they've taken all these measures. They have police. They have security. They have all sorts of ways of protecting themselves. These are proactive measures. Okay? These are not reactive measures. And these are measures that make you less of a victim, not more of a victim, which is what the U.S. Democrats and our Canadian government wants to do. So the question is, are you going to empower the good guys, the people who are innocent, the victims, to protect themselves, or are you going to make them more vulnerable and easier targets for the bad guys? And I think the next story, the Daily Wire story, shows really what this should look like, what Uvalde should have looked like. So the Daily Wire story said, you can read it, Stephen.
Suspect fatally shot outside Alabama elementary school. So a man exhibiting aggressive behavior outside of an Alabama elementary school was fatally shot on Thursday morning. According to a report from AL.com, a resident living close to the Walnut Park Elementary School near Birmingham called police reporting a suspicious man outside the school. He was aggressively trying to enter vehicles in multiple doorways. At the time, 34 children were inside the school for a summer literacy camp. A school resource officer on site responded, talked with the man, and called for backup. When a second officer arrived, an altercation ensued. The suspect was then fatally shot. Officials have not said if the man was armed.
Okay. So here, and I want to make sure we understand this for the next story. Keep in mind that this was a school resource officer. And he was able to show up, actually react to somebody acting aggressively. Now, we don't know what this guy's motives were. We don't know what he was doing. We know that he was trying to enter cars and try to rent the doors. But his behavior was concerning enough. People were worried. And the fact that he had to be shot shows that there were some serious problems with this guy. This was not a peaceful guy. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity. This was probably somebody who may have been slightly dangerous. Guess what? You have a security guard, a resource officer, who was able, and with the help of another officer, were able to put a stop to this guy before he was a real threat to children. So right there, imagine if Uvalde had a school resource officer who was armed, who and let's face it, before the kid got onto the school, he was already firing at people in the neighborhood. That resource officer would have known that something was going on, and he would have been able to go in and hopefully do something. But what is going on right now, because right now everyone's yelling solutions at each other. So the Democrats are saying, oh, guns are the problem. We need to make sure guns go away. And the Republicans are yelling, no, we need to empower people, not disempower them. We need to empower people to be good guys with a gun. And so there's been so many articles written. I had to go through them, but I actually thought that John Oliver was a good example of what is a common approach to this this myth that they like to call it a myth, there's no such thing as a good guy with a gun. So if you want, feel free to play it.
Okay, it's only 2 minutes, so let's just go.
A recent report found 14 million students go to a school with police, but without a counsellor, nurse, psychologist, or social worker.
On Last Week Tonight with John Oliver Sunday, Oliver argued that politicians' claims that schools need more police in order to prevent mass shooting deaths is completely baseless.
An analysis of 179 shootings on school grounds, which is a brutal thing to say out loud on its own, found no evidence that the presence of school resource officers lessened the severity of school shootings.
School resource officers also have the authority to arrest students for something as innocuous as throwing candy or having a maple leaf in their backpack.
And when a 5-year-old with ADHD had a tantrum, they were charged with battery on a police officer, when clearly the only thing they were guilty of was being a 5-year-old.
Parents of black students also worry that more police means more discrimination.
Cops in schools do tend to behave the same way they behave outside of schools, which explains why black students account for nearly a third of all students arrested, despite the fact that that is twice their share of enrollment.
Oliver argued that...
Yeah, it kind of goes on like this. So like here's the you can see all the completely and totally terrible arguments they're making. They're basically trying to say like, cops, if you're in trouble, if shooters are out there, you should call the cops, but you shouldn't have like anybody in law enforcement in your school because like then they're going to be bad people and they're going to like punish kids and do all sorts of like unspeakable things and all. Like it's a demonization. Yep. They love like John Oliver. I guarantee you, John Oliver has a security detail. These are like officers or some kind of law enforcement, probably private, with guns. But he's probably just fine having those people protecting him at all times. But no, you're not allowed to have them. You're a plebe. You're not allowed to have any protection for yourself. You have to be at the mercy and at the complete and total, like you have to be completely defenseless. Now, this actually culminated on June 4th. This culminated in an actual like speech by Senator Tom Massey in Congress, and he basically, the Democrats were trying to say that here. So here's what I said in the second paragraph. As Democrats made a renewed effort to push their narratives that a good guy with a gun is a myth that never plays out in real life, Massey proved them wrong in under 5 minutes with nearly a dozen examples of doing just that. And if you scroll down, he goes through like one at a time. Okay, so number one, May 5th, 2022, Charleston, West Virginia, woman carrying a legal firearm stopped a man who was shooting an AR-15 into a crowd. Yeah. May 3rd, 2022, South Fulton, Georgia, a man with a gun stopped a teenager from firing into a crowd during a rally. February 19th, 2022. These are all this year. In Portland, Oregon, a man who was shooting at a rally was stopped by a person with a legal firearm. Yeah. 17th, just last fall. In Pennsylvania, a 16-year-old illegally carrying a gun opened fire in the mall, but was stopped by a man with a legal gun. There are countless stories of individuals that have saved lives because they had a gun on them, and so they turned what would have been a victim situation into they basically turned the aggressor into the victim. And they totally turned things around on them. Actually, Stephen, can you skip forward to the Facebook Daily Wire video? I think that fits better here. Right there.
We should be moving on because we spent way too long on this segment.
Yeah. Okay. So go to this one. Here's a couple of examples of how people have basically turned around and have and have used their guns to protect people. So here, show some of the video here, Stephen.
Okay. Oh, it's been played for a bit without any sound.
All right. So this video is basically a montage of, of scenarios where people came up with a gun to threaten people, and they turned around and actually. Here's a guy going into a crowd with a handgun. And the woman comes out with a gun, disarmed her. Doing a carjacking, and the guy pulls out a gun and lights him on. Guy pulls out a gun. Shop owner fights off would-be robbers.
It goes on.
So these are this is an example of how a single person with a gun can totally fight off an aggressor, anybody who's coming in. Because let's face it, just like the video from the Three Amigos, ultimately these people are cowards and they will run when they're pushed on that. So Stephen, go to the story from Defense Web. I'm just gonna make a really quick comment on this. So
okay.
So people who don't know, in Somalia, if anybody's ever seen the movie Captain Phillips, piracy was a huge problem. Ships were constantly being boarded and threatened by armed gunmen on boats, and they try to take all these measures, but they just weren't working. Do you know what stopped it, Stephen?
Well, it says right here, among these reasons for the reduced threat Amongst the presents are 3 international naval task forces in the area, the extensive use by ship owners of armed private security guards, and improved best security practices.
Yeah, so go down like a little bit. There's, it says, so after it says Cook, it says, speaking at the Counterterrorism Summit, okay? Speaking at the Counterterrorism Summit, Robert Misson, the head of the European Commission's Land and Maritime Security Unit, said the key factor in the sharp drop in incidents was the greater presence of armed guards. Armed guards is the tipping point in the fight against piracy, said Misson. So what happened was, and I'll just summarize really quickly. They like how do you stop armed pirates with AK-47s and all that against innocent like ships? You put a sniper on the boat.
Yep.
And suddenly those pirates are like, "Oh crap, we're not gonna be able to like take this on." And they basically tried like their best. They basically the whole thing basically fell apart once they had somebody with a gun defending the ships, and that made it impossible for them to take over. Also, can you go to the Western Journal story about with the title "Here's Why Israel almost never has school shootings"? Yeah. I'm just going to talk about this one. So we'll go into this one as well, but basically here's a story from the Western Journal. I encourage you to read it. Israel, school shootings are incredibly rare. Do you know why?
They have
because
active military.
They have not only military, but every school has an armed security guard because they have to deal with terrorist attacks all the time. And they also have like Palestinians living in the city that could do terrorist attacks. And yet somehow they never seem to have people like coming in and take them over.
Well, here. Okay, so David Hasany, who writes about Israeli and American affairs, has 11 children of his own. He told 11 children, wow. Told Fox that Israel approaches school security with a complex, multi-layered approach. They put effort into identifying potential assailants through behavioral profiling, invest heavily in monitoring, bearing in mind that when the social media histories of most school shooters are examined afterwards, the red flags are all there, just like they were in Uvalde, just like they were with the Buffalo shooting, which wasn't technically a school shooting, but it was a mass shooting. Mm-hmm. They don't. So, in addition to this, they've hardened potential targets, and many believe the presence of armed security guards, metal detectors, and regular patrolling might frighten the children. Unfortunately, these measures have become necessary to protect them in today's America. That's what happens when you have a frighteningly evil society. And it's certainly far less frightening than what the students at Robb Elementary witnessed last week. So, trained law enforcement officers, this individual who trained law enforcement officers in the U.S. is responsible for security at the Chernikovsky Junior High School in Netanya, Israel. He told Fox that it is essential for the head of security to be given authorization for all aspects of student and faculty safety. Everyone who goes into the school needs to go through a metal detector, like an airport, and sign his name. The school has one exit and one entrance. Nobody comes to the school without the head of security knowing about it. We do not allow people not connected to the school to come inside. They employ a spotter 50 meters from the school who patrols the area for potential security threats. Larger campuses require a guard to monitor the area on a motorcycle. And of course, security fencing encircles the school grounds, and numerous cameras are positioned throughout the campus.
Yeah, people in the States, the Democrats like to pretend that if we magically get rid of all guns, that we're going to go to this utopian world where violence will be a thing of the past, will never happen. It's all nonsense. Obviously we want the world to be a safer place, but banning guns is only going to punish the good people, the people that are actually able. Now, one of the last arguments I want to address, and I'll just finish with this. People say, okay, what are you going to do? Put one person with a gun and they're going to defend against an armed gunman? I'm like, yeah. Do you know why? And I'll show you with the next video. This is a video from Wyatt Earp, one of my favorite scenes. And keep this in mind as you watch it. It's very simple. Keep in mind the concept that guns are the great equalizer, and they have the power to completely level the playing field, especially when you're dealing with a certain type of people. So if you play the scene.
Take Tommy with them. Finally, when they quieted down, you said,
"Nice mob you got here."
I said we want Tommy O'Rourke.
Yeah! Get set for disappointment, because you're not gonna get him.
Killed one of my men.
You'll stand trial for that.
arrogant son of a bitch. You think you can stop all of
it? Back up, son.
You boys can get me. That won't be any problem with all the guns you got here. But I'm taking 10 or 12 of you with me. Starting with you, Digger. And you, McGee. Maybe you too, Harvey. So if any of you want Tommy, you want me, come up front with these brave men. We'll all go together.
So much for that courage. Yeah, that's it. So here's the grand point. The wrap up. Okay. Here you have a mob. They would easily have overrun one person. Easily. They wouldn't even be close. But he's right. Yes. If it was like what was that? 30 people? 30 people against one in a fist fight, he's done. There's nothing he could have done. If it's 30 people with guns against one person without a gun, oh, he's done too. But the second you add a gun to the equation, he suddenly becomes just as deadly as anybody in that crowd. And he can easily take 5 to 10 people with him or more with just the 2 guns that he has. You have a innocent, defenseless woman in the middle of the night against a would-be rapist. That gun makes her basically invincible. That puts her at an equal playing field. Otherwise, she is a completely helpless victim. You put one person in that school, in Robb Elementary, with a gun who happens to is able to run into that shooter. Yeah, there's a chance that the shooter might get him. But you know what? Shooters are cowards. They're not brave. They're not going in there against all odds, because they're brave. They're cowards. They will run the second they face any opposition. Hence why he barricaded himself. Because he's not a brave guy.
Clear majority of shootings are in gun-free zones.
Yes. And so you show even the slightest bit of resistance to any one of these people, they will run. If you watch through that entire, all those clips from Daily Wire of all those little encounters, people with guns, the people who were the bad guys in those scenes, the second somebody started shooting at them, they hightailed it out of there. They're not brave people. They already know they're at risk. They will run. And so the idea that disarming good people will help make them safer is nonsense. The idea that you will actually proactively, among many other ways, other tools, one of the most key tools is you need to make people able to defend themselves. That is what will protect people.
Yeah.
And so give me proper solutions. Good guy with a gun is an actual thing. And if anybody tells you otherwise, they are lying to you, because the ultimate goal is to disarm you, because then you're easier to control.
Yep. Okay.
Steven?
Well, with all of that, let's move on to the douche of the week.
Steven hates long segments.
Well, this segment was like 40 minutes.
It was, but it was well done. I'll give you that.
Good. It was good.
Thank you.
But it's really hard to segment, because then it's really hard to advertise, because it's like, oh, it's 40 minutes long.
Uh-huh.
And people get sidetracked and they lose interest. So,
all right.
Douche of the week time. Let's do this. All right. Okay. Let's talk about the douche of the week. So, viral TikTok video of Canadian woman threatening the livelihoods of freedom fighters leads to HR investigation. Ugh. That woman has a scary face.
The face,
the face of crazy.
it doesn't matter what she could be talking about, like selling flowers or maybe like like about her puppy or something like that and all like that. But the face is just so like cringe.
Yeah. So
I don't. Yeah.
I'm just gonna show the video because it's, and then we'll.
So yeah, it's on the very bottom. So if you go to the very bottom of that
Not here?
that article, yeah, and it'll actually
you
have a
can't
link
watch
to
it
the
there.
actual thing.
Okay. So there
you go.
Lovely.
Some rights and freedom that would tell you that. But since you seem to forget that, and you're all loud and proud with your big thoughts and your big ideas, and you wanna whatever fucking set up hot tubs in Ottawa. I'm a recruiter. It's a small industry, smaller than you'd think. Same with HR. So if you're looking for a job, or maybe trying to keep a job, maybe, just maybe, think about what you're putting on social media. Again, freedom fighters. I know you're not really big with stats and, facts aren't your thing, but what I can tell you, what is a fact, is that recruiters talk. And recruiters, like the majority of Canada, don't agree with you. Do you know what that means? Do you have any guesses? Any guesses what that means? What that means is that if you need a job, you might not get one. If you want to keep a job, you might not get to do that. And you know what else HR is good at? Documentation. You know what that means? You want to be an asshole. We document it. We give you a couple tries. Then what do? We terminate you. With cause. If we're so lucky. If not, we give you the minimum allowed by law. Either way, best of luck to you. Recruiters are watching. HR is watching. Everywhere. And we hate you. We hate you so much. And you think we can't do anything. But we can. We have the power. Always. Remember that. Doesn't matter if there's a fucking man at the top of your HR department. It's run by women. And it's run by angry women just like me.
Yes.
I'm so glad I got that off my chest. It's been eating me up inside. And honestly, my heart goes out to you guys. I mean, you have families to feed, right? You brought your kids to this big event. You're freedom fighters. You're standing up. Oh, they will be so proud. So proud of you. Fuck yourself. Fuck yourself.
It's lovely.
Wow. If there was like a physical manifestation of like throwing up and vomit, like that's literally what I would picture right there. It's like,
oh man, absolutely not. Recruiter post controversial TikTok video. I think it's interesting how there is a Canada HR Reporter website.
Yeah.
Okay. Human Resources Professionals Association of Ontario has responded to a controversial TikTok video by one of its members, labeled some friendly HR advice. The video is over 2 minutes in length and posted by a self-proclaimed recruiter who is identified as Tammy Sapidis. Sapidis? Whatever.
Like I care.
A tweet by HRPA states that they're aware of the video by one of its members and does not condone or endorse in any way the statements made by HR about HR practice therein. Furthermore, HRPA is reviewing the matter to determine if there has been a breach of its rules of professional conduct.
Darn hope
the
so.
The woman speaks to freedom fighters, warning them about posting context on social media. We've already watched the videos.
Yeah.
And she, of course, ends the video by swearing at the video, not safe for work. So the LinkedIn profile of this individual has now been deleted, but mentioned that she was an HR manager based in Burlington, Ontario, who has her CHRL and CHRP from HRPA. And of course, back in 2019, Google warned employees to cease all political talk while on the job due to its disruptive nature.
Mm-hmm.
So
what are your thoughts on this demon straight from the Stephen?
This woman is nuts. This woman is
she is.
Well, no, because like if you're having this idea, it's like, okay, if you're part of HR, if you're part of any of these organizations, you cannot terminate somebody because they're stating an opinion. You cannot terminate somebody because they disagree with your personal political ideology.
No, apparently she can.
Well, she thinks she can.
She's basically bragging. No, she's bragging.
Well, she is bragging, but thankfully the HRPA is investigating her.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but only because of this video.
Only because it went viral. She would continue if she had not posted this video, but of course they always post their videos because they can't help themselves but be prideful in their achievements, be prideful in their control, and all the power was just like, well, aren't you big sister?
Well, they follow serial killers or a lot of these prolific, criminals and all that. They can't help to be recognized for their work. They feel like this sense of like pride, like I've taken down these bad people, and I'm so great and all that. They need to like show it. Do you remember that Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode? There was that episode where Peralta and Holt were interrogating this dentist, and he had essentially committed the perfect crime. He covered every base. He had everything totally accounted for, and he was so proud that like he was like making the police look like fools. And Jake Peralta essentially took that against him and used it to basically force him to confess what he did, because he basically tried to insinuate that he got lucky and he was like totally like the luckiest guy alive, and like none of this was like clever and all that. He was just like a lucky. And he was like, no, and he basically like confessed everything because he couldn't help but brag about his like, you know, how clever how great he was and all that. This lady, while not being a serial killer, she essentially has probably has quite a few people that she has like whose lives she has ruined because she has the power, and she's the kind of person that is probably using. Remember how we talked about the lunatic left in the States? They're going to abortion, like to pregnancy care centers and firebombing them. They're going to like Judge Kavanaugh's house and they're attacking him. These are people who they feel like entitled to like in their hatred, and they are hateful people. Let's get it straight. Even the woman that we started with, on ESPN, she's not quite as like deranged and unhinged that this lady is, but she's every bit as hateful, and she would be more than happy to dance on the graves of people's careers if she could see them. Like she would celebrate and gleefully cackle at people's misfortune. This woman is essentially a perfect representation of what's really going on in a lot of leftists, which is they have pure and unadulterated hatred for others.
Yep, they do.
And they get a little tiny bit of power and they want to, and they abuse it. And that's the problem, is that, like, how can you have common ground with someone like this? With a woman like this?
It's exceptionally difficult. Like, if well, no, you can't. Like, if someone says, okay, let's have a debate. Let's have like a, well, I think it back to like way back when that changed my mind. One of the first ones about pro-life. And he's like, okay, like, when do you think abortion should be legal? Until she's like, birth. And he's like, okay, bye. She's like, what?
Yeah.
And this is like, we're not going to compromise if you think it's okay to kill a 9-month-old kid.
There's no common ground there. Yeah.
Yeah, like there is none. Because it's so radicalized and it's so evil. It's just like, at that point, there's only one thing that can change your mind. And of course, unfortunately, that is an act of God.
Yeah. Yeah, and this woman has the acceptable form of hatred, because, like, you know, you have that kid in Uvalde, and you know he's obviously hateful. He truly is a hateful person, but he's the kind of hate that's not acceptable. He's the hate that, you know, like, kills people. She has the kind of hate that probably a lot of people think that, like, oh yeah, she's great, you know, because people have pure and unadulterated hatred for not only Christians but conservatives, and for Republicans, and for people who are on the other side. And it's interesting to see a woman like this, like the way that she's. Do you hear how she talks?
Yep.
Like she is so filled with hatred. I've met people like this in my life. They have this condescending, almost mocking tone to them.
Yeah.
Like it's almost demonic, where like they are like just filled with this this hatred. It's pretty crazy to see, actually.
It is.
And you can imagine her like being right in your face, like, you know, talking to you like that. Like you're holding back the urge to slap her across the face, be like, "Get out of my face, girl!" You know, like it's just, yeah. These are the kind of people that really make you worry for the future of our country.
Yep.
Because they are. She's by far not. Do you think she's the only one, Stephen?
Oh no, I've seen plenty of people who talk exactly like her.
Yeah.
Plenty of people who talk exactly like her. Plenty of people who celebrated when our pastor got arrested. Plenty of people who celebrated when the old woman was run over by the police.
Yeah, that old woman.
So many people believe that because we disagree with the mainstream narrative, that we are therefore, by default, evil. And any action that happens against us, whether we're fired, whether we're injured in some way, whether we're imprisoned for going against the government mentality, it is all justified because we are the great evil. We've been made into the scapegoats. It's like, oh, well, what is the great evil? According to the left, what is the great evil in American society? Well, it's guns and it's racism. And it's like, well, who perpetuates that? Of course, conservatives do. When, of course, that's not reality. Because there may be, of course, like 400 white supremacists in the entire United States. And, of course, defensive uses of firearms are far more prevalent than offensive uses of firearms. But yet they're
like
nope.
3 million versus like 10,000 in the States.
Yeah. And so anything that they can try to do, despite it being truthful or not, to attack conservatives, it's all seen as justified. It's like, oh, you participated in a peaceful rally. It's like, yeah, so did the people of BLM wasn't all that peaceful. Oh, but they're protesting something that exists. And it's like, the government took away our rights.
Yeah.
It's like, well, but the mainstream narrative doesn't say that it did.
It's the Cowboys and Indians thing again.
What?
Like everything that they do is justified because they have to be the good guys. There's no way they can be the bad guys.
There's no separating it. It's everything dials down to ideology, and as long as you ascribe to a certain political ideology, then you were the good guy.
Yeah.
Or you were the bad guy.
And this is the kind of behavior that's promoted and cheered because the shooter who showed up at Kavanaugh, the ESPN lady, the guy who showed up at that school in Alabama, and this lady, the common theme is this behavior is cheered by the people on the left because they see power as the only good, like the only value that's worth having. And they see like their enemy. They dehumanize their enemies, which is why we're heading towards civil war.
Yep.
Because people like this want to see us dead.
No, they want to see us crushed. They want to see us imprisoned. They want to see our children taken away. It's any action, as long as it harms us, as long as it harms the scapegoats, it is commendable, it is good, and it is worthwhile to pursue. And it does not matter how grotesque it gets, because they're the evil. Guess what? The Jews were treated in the exact same way. Any action, any evil committed against them was permissible because society and culture told them so.
But at the core of everything, it should always be remembered, these people, particularly like Antifa, BLM, this woman in this video, they really aren't. These are not brave people. These are not courageous people. In order to be brave and be courageous, there has to be a modicum of fear. You have to be afraid before you have the courage to overcome the thing you're afraid of. A soldier going out of a trench into like battle, they have legitimate fear. They could be shot,
but they overcome it.
But they overcome it. These people don't have any fear. That woman in ESPN, no fear. This woman here, no fear, because she feels there's not going to be any repercussions to her actions.
And what is likely to happen is that HRPA will be like, well, we looked at it and we gave her a warning.
Yeah,
it's like, but she's saying that those who disagree with her should be fired and prevented from getting a job, and it doesn't matter whether they can feed their families or not, because she hates them all.
Yeah,
it's like, well, yeah, but we basically. HRPA said it was okay to fire people over vaccination status, so they don't care.
Well, because the left is a cult, and they will always protect their own.
Yes, they will.
Unless they rebel in any way, and then they will eat their own. So, this woman is basically the epitome. She is the face of really all the lunatic left. She's the face of it.
Yep.
She's like obviously the worst. She's the worst, but she really is like only at the head of the line of all these, because most of these people try to do it on either like behind in a less like aggressive way, or in secret.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they all have the same sentiment, and it's really terrifying. This is why this woman is just like if you want to like ever like be like like, well, I want to like you want to avoid getting turned on or something like that, like you just like take a video and be like, oh, okay, I'm good. I will never be able to have sex for another like for like the next week or month or whatever,
And tomorrow.
Yeah. Woman's really like cringy.
I know. All right, so that's going to be today's show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Those who were engaged in the chat, particularly, of course, Conquerworm and King James. Unfortunately, I think King James has left. Interesting conversation. We might not have agreed on every point, but, always fun. And then, of course, anybody watching afterwards on any of our video platforms, such as BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble, comment, like, subscribe, and share these videos with your friends. Of course, that's how they get around. If you are following us on our text platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, Gitter, and Parler, then share, review, comment, give us all your commentary, any feedback you might have. And of course, next week, hopefully, Danny and I will both have our advertisements done, and we'll post them both and see how people feel. And we'll go from there.
It'll be good times.
Yeah, should be good times. And then, of course, if you're listening or watching on our podcast platforms, share, download, share, and get it out. Do not comment. We're not going to respond.
But if you
not because we don't want to, because we don't see it.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, like if you feel like we do like good stuff and all that, feel free to give us like a 5-star, like review or something like that. That also kind of helps us to know if people like it.
And of course, check out our website at theshrewddudes.com for any resources, links, websites, anything that we might have. We have, of course, a bunch of broad topics on our Shrewd Dudes resources page, and links to a lot of our former videos, rally footage, all the like. So check that out at your leisure. And Danny, sign us out. Oh wait, there we are. Sign us out.
Good night, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. So hey, I'm Senior Sweetness, and that man over there is Salty Steve. We are the Shrewd Dudes, and we always like to remind you: why be rude? You be shrewd.
All right.
Thanks
We'll
for watching,
everybody, on Tuesday. Until then, have a fantastic weekend.